Good morning and welcome to the National Newspaper Publishers Association's Let It Be Known. This morning, Virginia Democratic Senator Tim Kaine has joined a growing list of folks and experts who are now saying there's a powerful argument to be made for barring Donald Trump from the presidential ballot based on the 14th Amendment's ban on insurrectionists holding public office. We'll discuss that this morning. And also in Florida, a group of neo Nazis and white supremacists spread anti Semitic, white supremacist, and anti LGBTQ messages outside of all places, Disney World in the nearby Orlando, Florida area over the weekend. And the latest example of rising anti Semitism and hate in the U.S. And in Florida, of course, a redistricting plan pushed by Republican Governor Ron DeSantis has violated the state constitution and is prohibited from being used for any future U.S. congressional elections since it diminishes the ability of Black voters in North Florida to pick a representative of their choice. That's what a state judge ruled over the weekend as well. Circuit Judge J. Lee Marsh spent his Saturday handing down this decision. He sent the plan back to the Florida legislator with instructions that lawmakers should draw a new congressional map that complies with the Florida Constitution. And this morning, Oprah Winfrey is taking a lot of heat. She's being accused of doing everything she can to protect her Hawaii estate from the unprecedented wildfires that devastated the island of Maui last month. Multiple reports and social media users have shown videos alleging that she hired a private team of firefighters to stave off the flames from damaging her 2,000-acre plus land. Not to mention, many are still outraged that the former talk show host publicly visited shelters where the displaced residents sought refuge after losing their homes. We'll talk about that. And how about this? Diddy is back in our on our radar again this morning, but and it's for another good cause. He's given multiple artists on Bad Boy Records, and yes, including Mace, their publishing rights. That's a huge deal. We'll talk about it all this morning on Let It Be Known. First, though, before any votes are cast in the 2024 presidential election, Donald Trump could face a legal battle on multiple fronts over whether he even has the right to be on the ballot. Some scholars and liberal groups are stepping up efforts to disqualify the former president based on a post Civil War provision of the 14th Amendment. And Virginia's Democratic Senator Tim Kaine has joined that growing list of folks who are saying that, quote, there's a powerful argument to be made for barring Donald Trump from the presidential ballot based on the 14th Amendment's ban on insurrectionists holding public office. The argument is centered on the fact that under Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, Trump is ineligible for the presidency because he took the oath of office and subsequently engaged in insurrection or rebellion or gave aid or comfort to the enemies during the January 6, 2021 insurrection. Now, election officials around the country are considering how to navigate that issue, which could be decided on a state by state basis. The issue has already come to the fore in states like New Hampshire, Arizona, and Michigan. And several secretaries of state are making a decision already that they are leaning toward not putting Trump on the ballot, which could be a considerable blow to his hopes to retake the White House next year. We'll see how this all shakes out. But Tim Kaine was making his rounds on the news shows over the weekend, over the holiday weekend, and he decided to talk about this 14th Amendment. And Tim Kaine says, look, the facts are the facts. This is what the Constitution says. But we know that the Constitution has not been followed uh, these last few years anyway. So we'll see how that shakes out. But it's a really interesting thing that even some Republican states are leaning, at least saying that they're leaning toward leaving him off the ballot. Um, and how about his favorite attorney general out in Texas? he's being impeached and perhaps even prosecuted. We'll see what happens there. So I don't know. Maybe there's this growing rift between the Republican Party and Donald Trump. Obviously, he still has the all powerful, at least powerful in the Republican camp, all powerful MAGA wing. So we will see what happens there. And you know, it's been a few months since the NAACP issued a travel advisory for African Americans when it comes to Florida. And incidents like what happened over the weekend at Disney is just another reason why. Obviously, Governor DeSantis is the primary reason, but Governor DeSantis' policies and his actions spawned things like this. Groups of neo Nazis and white supremacists spread anti Semitic, white supremacist, and anti LGBTQ messages outside Disney World in the nearby Orlando, Florida area on Saturday, in the latest example of rising hate in America. About 15 people wearing clothing and bearing flags emblazoned with Nazi insignia demonstrated outside the entrance to the Disney Springs shopping center, according to the Orange County Sheriff's Office, which said deputies were dispatched at about 10:40 a.m. Saturday morning. Participants carried anti-Semitic, white supremacist, and anti-LGBTQ flags and signs. And the group consisted of members of the neo-Nazi group Order of the Black Sun, Aryan Freedom Network, and 14 First, a now disbanded group that has been absorbed into the National Socialist Movement, the largest neo Nazi group in the U.S., according to the Anti Defamation League. The extremists dispersed after about 2 hours, and no one was arrested, according to the sheriff's office. But the theme park, we know, has been embroiled in controversies this year. Its governing district drew criticism for abolishing its diversity, equity, and inclusion programs last month, and the theme park is mounting a legal challenge against DeSantis and has encountered backlash from some Disney devotees for closing its famous Splash Mountain ride in January because its incorporation of characters from the 1946 film Song of the South, which featured racist stereotypes. And of course, they got heat because they cast a black person, Haley Bailey, as the mermaid, the lead, the mermaid. So Disney will always be the center of some sort of attention. Disney World, Disney. And speaking of Florida, a redistricting plan pushed by DeSantis has violated the state constitution and is prohibited from being used for any future U.S. congressional election, since it diminishes the ability of Black voters in North Florida to pick a rep of their choice. That's according to a state judge who ruled on Saturday. Judge J. Lee Marsh sent the plan back to the Florida legislature with instructions that lawmakers should draw a new congressional map that complies with the Florida Constitution. The voting rights groups that challenged the plan in court, quote, have shown that the enacted plan results in a diminishment of Black voters' ability to elect their candidate of choice in violation of the Florida Constitution, the judge wrote in his decision. It was the latest to strike down new congressional maps in southern states over concerns that they diluted Black voting power. Mike V is writing in that this is unbelievable. Trump used DHS to attack Black Lives Matter when he was in office, but these neo Nazis get to waltz around unscathed, shaking my head. And of course, Power 96 had a good weekend. I think I saw some of his Instagram post where he's into SWAC sports, and he says Ron DeClantis sent out his foot soldiers again. Never misses a beat over there. He never misses a beat, and that's where it's at. So remember, back in the springtime, the NAACP issued a travel advisory for Florida, for Black Americans to be careful when traveling to Florida. Um, Nowadays, it seems like Florida, nothing good comes out of Florida. Wow. like Mississippi and Alabama now. Those southern states are really buckling down and really, really trying to turn the clock back as far as possible, further than the civil rights, further than Jim Crow. They want to take it all the way back, folks. There's no question about it. Their action, they say actions speak louder than words. And Power 96 says Houston was very hot. He had a great weekend. Houston was very hot. Yeah, it's been hot everywhere pretty much. Climate change, climate change, climate change. It's just been boiling. It's going to be hot on the East Coast and the Northeast, from Washington to New York. High 90s again. Yesterday, high 90s. Today and tomorrow are expected to be more of the same, and not much of a cool off as the week winds down. So supposed to be about getting ready now for fall, right? My favorite time of year. I love fall. I love fall weather. If we ever get our seasons, we really don't have seasons anymore, do we? It's one extreme or the other. It's just, we were talking to somebody the other day about the wintertime and how we don't really get winters in the Northeast anymore. Not real those real cold ones like that's have you just using those hand warmers and all of that stuff, putting extra socks on, to go inside your boots. And Power 96 would probably remember this. When you put with these kids, we go out and play in the snow and you wrap your boots up in plastic. So, haven't had those days in decades. Climate change, folks. Believe it. Oprah Winfrey is accused of doing whatever it takes to protect her Hawaiian home from the unprecedented wildfires that ravaged the island of Maui in August. Several social media users have posted videos claiming she hired a private firefighting team to prevent the blazes from damaging her 2,000-acre property. Not to mention that many are still outraged that the former talk show host publicly visited emergency shelters where displaced residents took shelter after losing their homes. The locals are accusing Oprah of hiring those firefighters, and they are just not happy. Again, we talk about privilege. We know who has all the privilege for the most part, but then there are the celebrities and those with the cash, right? Even if they look like us, they too enjoy some privilege as well. But I tell you what, so here's the deal. If you had the means, it's a question, and I would like Michelle. I'd like to hear from Michelle Madison on this, as well as Power 96 and Mike V and the rest of you guys. Um, would you pay for your own firefighter force to ensure that your home is not damaged in such a wildfire or something like that? I don't know. I don't think that for many of us, I don't think that would be a question if we had the means that Oprah has. I mean, we don't want our property destroyed, and in the heat of that moment, no pun intended, are we really thinking about, well, what about this or what about that? We're thinking about all our precious stuff, and that's what people tend to default to, right? Is their precious stuff, and um, now I would imagine, and I don't take up for Oprah either, Power 96. I really don't. I'm not your typical. Well, I'm not your Oprah fan, but he says, but celebrities do the same thing in Beverly Hills, and he's right. He's right. Um, and my point though is, would you do it? Would you folks do it? And those folks who are throwing the rocks at Oprah right now, are you throwing the rocks and hiding your hand? Would you do the same thing? I think I would probably do it too, but I'd probably, I don't know, maybe my neighbor. But see, these are not. If you look at the photos, they're not. Oh, it's not like you have somebody next door. Because like most of us have people like next door. And so I would be looking out for my neighbors too, in this sense. But where her compound, if you will, is as we see Clint Eastwood's home, Owen Wilson, Mick Fleetwood's home, I will not send the firefighter force to Jeff Bezos' home He has much money, 4 seasons. Yeah. So I'm not hating on Oprah for this move. I'm telling you right now. I mean, I find it hard to hate on her for Steven Tyler's house. I went to see the opening show the other night. My wife and two of our great friends of Aerosmith's farewell tour, peace out tour. And I tell you what, 75 years old, Steven Tyler's running around that stage, and 73-year-old Joe Perry. Those guys know what they're doing out there. Oh man, it was a great show. It was a great show. There was a lot of sound problems, a lot of little nuances that it was so obvious that Steven Tyler did not appreciate. Um, they had a Joey Douglas was on. He was on the drums, and 'cause Joey Kramer, the original Aerosmith drummer, is not doing this tour, but it was a great show. I know not many that watch us are really that much into rock and roll, but that's what it is. Believe me, if you saw an Aerosmith show, you'll understand why they are hands down the greatest American rock and roll band in history. I wanted them to do. They do a cover of Aretha Franklin's. What's the title of that song? Is it Doctor Feel Good? Or no, no, you're no good heartbreaker. You're a liar, you cheat. You know, I never loved a woman is what it's called. Her song is I never loved a man, but they do it. It's never loved a woman, and they do such an amazing. They didn't do it the other night, unfortunately, but they do that, and they also continue to do what I say everybody does. I had this conversation with my friends, and they explained to me about the Beatles' greatness, right? Because I'm not in any way, shape, or form into the Beatles. I think everybody does Beatles songs better than the Beatles, and they do uh, just the absolute best rendition of "Come Together." Aerosmith does. Anyway, Quinn, my brother-in-law, says, "Who would make sure her home is good? She has to protect." She has to protect herself if she can. Yeah, again, I'm not hating on Oprah for that. Um, I think Oprah did what. Look, it's in her means. It's in her means. And then when you consider all, again, as we read off the names, all who are neighbors, are. When you say neighbors, trust me, they're not next door, but all who live in that region. Mick Fleetwood, Owen Wilson, Steven Tyler, Clint Eastwood's home, Larry Ellison's land over there, or Jeff Bezos. Come on, yeah, they could have did the same thing. So it's not that they're the ones who are criticized. I don't know if they are or not, but if they are, then shame on them. Michelle Madison says, "I would make sure every structure that could be saved is hire as many firefighters as possible." So maybe it's just it's either contrived controversy. There's no such thing as jealous controversy. People being jealous that she's able to do that. And there's also this Larry Ellison. Not let Larry Ellison's home burn, Mike V. Let it burn, as Usher would say. Let it burn. Um, he's got the eyes too. But I think part of it with Oprah was what appeared to have been, for many, appeared to have been a stunt when she went to that shelter. And it's like, come on, are you really trying to, uh, you know, come in here now with cameras? These people fled. They are, they are shaken up and ravaged. And they go into this shelter. Most of them, or all of them, who wants to be in a shelter? And who wants Oprah or anybody there? And I'm told that I got to mention Mr. Prime Time, as he wants to be called. He's Deion Sanders. But yes, Colorado. Actually, I watched part of that game. In fact, I watched probably the last 10 minutes of that game. They beat TCU, and you know you got to hand it to him. At least, I mean, it's just one game, but you got to hand it to him. What he's done over there in Colorado, it's interesting. it's really interesting because what he did was he essentially came in and it's equivalent of going on a major league team and getting rid of all of the high priced players. So those who were there already, they had these scholarships or whatever. He just cut them and said, I'm going with these guys who, I'm bringing this guy from here, this guy from there, this guy, guys who he felt or who they may have felt were throwaways, and said, you know what, guys, we got nothing to lose. And I tell you what, the biggest challenge you'll ever have is going up against someone with nothing to lose. And Dion understands that and understood it well, prepared them well. Um, Went into a very, I mean, the environment was tough, and they pulled it off. So it's going to be an interesting season. At least it shows us if they don't win in Colorado, it's not because they're not going to be competitive. So it's going to be really, really interesting season out in Colorado, and Leon is going to make a lot of people. He looks like he's going to make a lot of people eat a lot of crow. Um, and I mean, I'm not going to be there celebrating with him because I'm not a Deion Sanders fan. That's right. I'm a hater. I can admit it. uh, Power 96. I can't. I'm not mentioning Beyonce. Beyonce has nothing to do with this morning show. He wants to. He wants to mention Beyonce's birthday. What's her name was at Beyonce's show? Meghan Markle, the princess or the former princess. He She was there with Kelly, and they were jamming out. Megan was showing another side of her that the royal family obviously doesn't like. She was showing them. She was shaking what her mama gave her too. And I'm sure the king and that old lady he's been married to forever, who's been old. That lady, Camilla, whatever her name is, she was old. It's 2023. He married Diana in 81, 82, something like that. Parker Bowles. She was old then. She's a corpse. I mean, gosh. It's just so infuriating what some men do. Give us such a bad name. Good grief. Barrington should have been here this morning to talk about that. But yeah, Beyonce and Megan and Kelly, I'm sure they had a good after party, um, and chilled with the the princess, I guess. What is she? Duchess. Duchess. That's what she is. Duchess. She should have known you can't be black and go around being called Duchess. Oh gosh, let me stop while I'm behind here. They say quit while you're ahead. I'm quitting while I'm behind. And we talk, it's not often that we talk when we talk about Diddy, Puffy, Sean. It's not often that it's always Power 96 says she aged like fruit. um that's a good one. It's not often when we talk about Diddy that it's been all good. And you guys, I get this thing. Somebody, I don't know how I got on this thing, but I get this message. It's a 917 number from Diddy every other day or so. And he starts off with "This is love." As remember, he started calling himself Love. He starts off like "This is love," and this is the day you're going to have, and this and that. And then, of course, he tells us what Bad Boy is up to, et cetera, whatever, whatever. And it's just the weirdest stuff that he says with this love stuff. You think has he lost his mind? But nonetheless, Diddy, we reported last week on some good doings by Diddy giving Jackson State University's football team $1 million. Well, he has come through. Remember all that fighting between him and Mace and others, and about the rights, the publishing rights. Well, Mace, Faith Evans, The Locks, 112, and the estate of Biggie Smalls are among the creators who have signed agreements to regain those rights. Yep, coinciding with Bad Boy's 30th anniversary. The surprise move by Diddy arrived after a public dispute of several years between him and, of course, as we said, Mace. Um, After Sean Combs, Puffy, Puff Daddy, upgraded the Recording Academy for taking Black artists in R&B and rap for granted during a 2020 acceptance speech for the organization. Y'all remember this? Industry Icon Award at Clive Davis's pre-Grammy bash. Mace took to his former label boss to task. He took him to task for doing the same thing, and he was 100% right. In a since deleted Instagram post, y'all might remember Mace revealed that he'd offered Puffy $2 million to buy back his publishing, but Puffy declined to do that. Most Mace had said, your past business practices knowingly has continued purposely starved your artists and been extremely unfair to the very same artists that helped you obtain that icon award on the iconic Bad Boy label. For example, you still got my publishing from 24 years ago in which you gave me $20,000, which makes me never want to work with you as any artist wouldn't. This is not Black excellence at all. And of course, last year during the interview with the Breakfast Club, Diddy alleged that Mace owed him $3 million for an album advance that was never delivered on. But apparently, all have been resolved. Everything is good. And that's a great, great move. You know, no matter how you slice it, it's a great move by Puffy, Puff Daddy, Diddy, P. Diddy, Sean Combs. It's a great move. It's a great it's a good, real good look. Um, and publishing for artists it means the world. It's one of those, you say give a person a fish and feed them for a day, or teach them to fish and they, will eat for a lifetime. In this case, they earned a lifetime to eat their fish. If that made sense. And so he finally recognized that whatever happened to have him recognize that, well, good for him. Good for Puffy. It's a good move. 30th anniversary of Bad Boy, and what a great anniversary gift he gave to those deserving artists, including, I can only imagine the look on Biggie Smalls' mom's face when she signed the dotted line for the family. That is a great gift. So some good come out of the 50th anniversary of hip hop and the 30th anniversary of Bad Boy. So there you have it. Bad Boy for life. Thanks for watching. Let it be known. We'll see you tomorrow.